All right. Well, Sarah, do you have thoughts on what makes a villain lovable or not?
Oh, Ashley, I have many thoughts on this. I have many thoughts. In fact, I would break it into, I think, three main categories for me. I think this can be individual too. Like, I think people connect to villains for different personal reasons, but
Sure.
the three things that, let's hope I remember all three now, that make a villain lovable to me are: one, if you can see that the actor is having fun playing them.
Okay.
Like, sometimes those roles like could be taken too seriously, but you can see that like the actor behind them is really just eating it up, and I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The other for me is when the villain is obviously having fun. I think so many times in like superhero movies and stuff, the villain is having a good time
Yeah.
and everybody else
Loki.
is so serious. Loki is like the internet example of a lovable
Yeah.
villain, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's a perfect example of that. He is enjoying himself, and I love watching that.
Mm.
And then three for me is the dramatics, just
Yeah.
being so melodramatic, which so many villains are. One of the villains I'm going to discuss in this episode is exactly for this reason. Like, I just love how over the top some of them are, and that really makes me love them. So those are my criteria.
Oh my gosh.
Do you have different criteria?
Oh my, I have no idea. That was so eloquent. I totally agree with those. I don't think I would have thought of it that way. Usually I'm more of a like, I'll start to love them when we're kind of guided to love them. Like they'll have a really good character arc. They'll have a person or a thing, kind of like an Achilles heel, like where they'll show their vulnerability, and that makes them more relatable, kind of like those redeeming qualities, right? That every good villain, I think, has some sort of like a, like, you get it kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know that I have criteria. I actually struggled a bit to find villains that I loved, because I think it was hard for me to differentiate between the like love to hate versus the like just purely like I really enjoyed this character. I think those are almost two different things. And I think also for a lot of shows, the concept of the villain is a bit obscure, especially as like for TV shows, particularly like as the series go on, a lot of villains become like not really a villain, just another character, more of an antagonist, I guess you would say.
Just like a foil.
Yes, just another viewpoint, or like someone who's just messing with the plan. But I think that there's no story, right, without a villain. So we've got to have them, got to love them.
Gotta have them, gotta love them. Tagline, name of the episode.
I feel like, I think so the episode name that I came up with this was I don't even know what I said was words. A villain only a millennial could love, because we are
it's perfect.
Primarily a millennial podcast. I don't know, were your villains that you chose, were they like millennial media villains or just general whatever time period?
One, I'm gonna say yes. Another one, not quite. And I think we have a runner-up section in which I really am testing the limits of that.
Okay. Yeah. I had a lot of honorable mentions. Yeah, which I think we'll have some interesting dialogue. So yeah, well, welcome to Comfort Culture. We're here. We're talking about lovable villains, sort of our millennial time period, sort of whenever. We are millennials who love the media that we grew up with, but we also have that overarching just love for comfort media in general that can feel very nostalgic.
And this is our podcast, and we can talk about whatever we want.
That noise just came out of me. All right. Why don't we just get right into your first pick?
All right. I'm going to give us a little continuity from our last episode where we talked about Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
And I'm going to acknowledge that this pick is not 100% a villain, but I think in the scheme of things, you could classify him as that. And I'm going to go with Gollum. He's not a good guy. He's not a good guy, right?
No.
So I'm going to call him a villain.
He's a murderer.
Yeah, he's a pretty bad guy.
Yes. He's a pretty bad guy.
Pretty bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he very much falls into category 3 of villains that I love.
Yeah.
And the reason I love him is because he is so dramatic. And I mean, like, the scenes where Frodo and Sam have him on like the elvish rope and he is just like screeching behind them and just making such a scene about it. I love it. I love that about him. I also love that he refers to himself as precious. That's another thing. I didn't like really think about that for so many years, but like, he hates and loves himself in equal measure, and that is one of the ways. Like, he calls himself precious. There is also like something deeper to really enjoying what he represents in this movie that's like full of very black and white characters where they're either good or they're bad. He really is this like struggle, and we see that with Gollum versus Smeagol and those like really creative switching frames where he's looking at his reflection in a little puddle. But he really does struggle, and his villainy is external, right? It's the ring affecting him, and it's really like he, to me, is one of the most human characters in a film full of mostly non-humans. And I love that representation, but mostly I adore that he is a dramatic queen from start to finish.
I feel like now that you're saying that, I'm robbed of seeing like a prequel about Smeagol. And I wonder if he was so dramatic before he became Gollum. I also just wonder if he never got the ring, if it never came across him, would he have still become a murderer?
Right, because
he was done something horrible in his life. Who knows?
He was just out fishing with his friend that day.
Seemed like they're having a good time, but maybe also he was like a super toxic friend. Like, we don't know.
That's very true.
Well, maybe people do know. Maybe the Tolkien experts that you were referring to in the first episode know.
You guys can add us. Please add us.
Yeah, be like nice-ish.
Yeah. Just educate us. We're coming from a place of curiosity.
Absolutely. Very open-minded. We're movie people, at least for Lord of the Rings. And we do want to know. And maybe there isn't an answer. That sometimes is fun too. We can just wildly speculate about fictional worlds.
I love that there are answers to this and we're like, but that's okay. Someone can tell us or we won't know.
Oh my gosh. I bet. So you know how Google now has that little like AI section at the top when you search for something, and it's typically wildly inaccurate.
Yes.
I'm wondering, I just want to see like was Gollum a good guy before he murdered his friend? I'm gonna Google that really quick. Okay, AI has something to say. No. Says no. According to Tolkien's lore, Gollum, originally named Smeagol, was not a, quote, good guy.
Oh,
even before he murdered his friend Deagle for the One Ring.
While he might... Sorry.
I love that. No, that was a good little interchange there. So while he might have had a semblance of a normal life, he was already described as having a covetous and sneaky personality, making the act of murder seem like a natural progression when he was exposed to the ring's corrupting influence.
Okay, all right.
I mean, this is AI.
Yeah.
AI also has told me a lot of things that are just not true. If you test it on stuff, you're just like, okay, so you don't know. Yeah. But you're saying it with all the confidence in the world. So
now the Tolkien scholars are really going to add us.
Well, don't at me, at the robots.
Yeah. All right, Ashley, who is your first lovable villain choice?
Okay, I love that we both picked one from Lord of the Rings.
Really on brand.
Didn't plan this. But also, I feel like this will show the difference between me and you, because we are lifelong friends, but we are also very different people.
Yes.
So my Lord of the Rings villain pick, this was not a category, my lovable villain pick happened to also be from Lord of the Rings, and it was Lurtz. Do you know who Lurtz?
I don't know who that is.
I didn't know what his name was. You only learn it in the credits. It is the leader of the Uruk-hai and the one who murders Boromir.
Oh.
Kills him in battle. Is that murder? I don't know.
Is it because he has such a fashionable hairdo?
Yes. I love the memes where it's like other girls with their hair half up and it's Ariana Grande. And then it's like me and it's just a picture of Lurtz. Maybe that was what started my like going down the rabbit hole of Lurtz and loving him.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of bullet notes about why I love Lurtz. Okay. So we talked about this in the last episode, but I love the villains in general in Lord of the Rings, like the monstery ones, because I think they're so monstery.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and forth between wanting to talk about Lurtz and wanting to talk about the ring wraiths, particularly in the Fellowship when they're on the black horses.
Okay.
I loved, I don't know, something about that imagery.
Yeah.
Like when they started, what are the, like, this is bad. What are they flying around on in the rest of the movies?
Oh, I don't remember what those are called.
What are those called? The little, like, I was very disappointed when the horses went away. I understand how, you know, they also needed a different way to get around than just on the ground. And if you have like a flying dragon thing.
The only thing that's coming to mind is Sam when he yells, "Wraiths on wings!" Or maybe Gollum says that. Is it Gollum? It's Gollum. Yeah. Wraiths on wings.
Again, we're super fans, allegedly. But I remember as a child being very disappointed that the horses were gone because I thought they were so cool. They were like dripping with like this like black goo almost, and just like were so, I don't know. I thought they were so intimidating and so well done. But I went with Lurtz. Lurtz. Okay, so Lurtz has one line, and it's after Saruman like gets him out of the goo, right? He's like scooping him out of the mud, and he immediately murders an orc, right? He chokes him out, and the other orcs try to intervene, and Saruman is like, "I'm gonna let this happen," and then because I don't know, I guess he wanted a vicious leader, and he clearly was showing that like was just born out of the mud,
and they were showing us in the movie how evil he was. They did not leave that up to the imagination.
Nope, they were like, yeah, he's bad. He's a bad boy. So then Saruman asks, "Whom do you serve?" And Lurtz says, "Saruman." Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Delivery not great, but
delivery perfect.
Okay, so then my next bullet point is about the Ariana Grande hair. Love it. And also, as a child, did you like appreciate or understand like what was happening? I don't think I still do. Like in the mud, like he's like gardening Uruk-hai.
Oh,
you know how they're like he has to pull it out of the this like the mud womb.
Yeah, mud womb. Yeah.
Because he had somehow bred these elf orc hybrids that were the Uruk-hai, right? Yeah. They were supposed to be more violent and evil, and I just felt like he was such a badass character, even though he was in the film pretty briefly. So I looked up who played him. His name was Lawrence McCoy. I'm not sure if I put parentheses there because to look up the pronunciation and then didn't. Apologies, but he is huge. He's 6'4", pretty beefy. They put more prosthetics on him to make him look extra muscular. But he also played the Witch King of Angmar.
Wow, multi-talented.
and Gothmog in Return of the King, who is like the lumpy faced orc.
Oh,
leader.
yeah.
Gothmog. Who knew?
Gothmog.
These names.
Is he the age of men is over, the time of the orc has begun?
I think so.
Time
yeah.
of men is over, the age of the orc, whatever it is.
Another
one of my favorite memes.
Have we ever watched these movies? I also have found that I have trouble pronouncing some of the names and words, one, because of who I am as a person, but two, because of the way that they say a lot of things in the film with this kind of like accent or lilt, like the Witch King. They're like, the Witch King of Angmar. Like if I try to just say it like not in that voice, I'm like, how do you actually say that word? I'm not sure.
I also couldn't spell it for you right now. We should have started this whole podcast with a disclaimer. We are casual Lord of the Rings fans that has seen them dozens of times
and find extreme comfort in them. I don't know. I feel like that's a fairly common demographic.
Yeah, I don't think we're alone. I think the type of people finding our podcast are going to get it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
One other thing that I learned about the orcs in general, I know that Lurtz was an Uruk-hai, which is different. I at least know that much, okay? I didn't know until Rings of Power that orcs couldn't tolerate sunlight.
Yeah.
So that's why Saruman was like, I'm going to create this new Uruk-hai that could like better tolerate the sunlight.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I thought they were just like bigger and badder.
Both that
okay.
and yes.
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
So I guess I just loved him because he's a super badass. He's so tough. He's so evil. He's so vicious. He's definitely like we were talking about in the last episode of that like evil incarnate vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the shots in the movie that is so sad, but one of my favorites is like him standing at the top of the hill, like with the bow and arrow shooting Boromir, like that shot where they're like running by and he's it's so good.
I'm gonna go ahead and put this villain in category number 3 also. He's like very think about how many slow-mo shots he gets. There are not a lot of slow-mo shots in Lord of the Rings, but he gets like several.
Okay, he gets his arm chopped off. He gets stabbed through the stomach all the way through, pulls the knife in. He's like licking daggers. He's just like, he's nuts.
Very dramatic.
He is very dramatic. And then literally, this is like getting kind of graphic. And I know I said Lord of the Rings isn't that violent, but he has to get like beheaded to stop fighting. Mm-hmm. Like that's how Aragorn eventually defeats him.
It's a very clean beheading. It's not like a gory. Like... There's like no blood. I mean, I don't know if they have, but you know what I mean. They do have blood. Orcs have like blue blood, green blood.
It's I don't know, blackish,
but nothing came out in that beheading.
No, he'd already like bled out from his arm coming off. Anyway, I love him. He is one of my favorite villains of all time. He's someone I look forward to seeing. I wish she had a longer reign over several I almost said episodes over several movies. I wish he was in all the movies. I just love him. I don't know what to say. I love him.
It's a really solid pick.
Yeah. All right, what's your number 2?
All right, so I feel like this is such a strange one because this is a movie you and I have never talked about. But I am going with Hans Gruber from Die Hard.
Oh my God, I love it.
Now, this is not a nostalgic movie for me because I saw it for the first time 2 or 3 years ago, very recently. But this is like peak Alan Rickman, who is category number 1.
Yeah.
Actors you can tell are enjoying themselves. Like this is a boring villain. He has like no motivation anybody cares about. There's no gray area. Like the man just wants to steal a bunch of money and he has a ridiculous plot and it is a very silly movie that I love. I was shocked how much I love this movie. Like I went into it and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll watch it. Like, I should at some point. Everybody talks about it. I loved this movie. But
So
it's
fun.
very silly. And Alan Rickman just like plays the crap out of that part. And it's just like you can tell he's having fun underneath it all, which I think is not a rare thing for Alan Rickman playing a villain. And I know that we have some other Alan Rickman examples to discuss in a bit. But it's just, you know, even there's this like scene in the film where he has to, or Alan Rickman has to, as the character, repeat like the yippee-ki-yay line. And he does it in that, like, I don't even remember what that accent is supposed to be. It's such a ridiculous accent that he sticks with the whole time. And he has to like say it as the villain. It's super serious. And I just love it. I love that movie because of Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber. That is my choice number 2.
That's such a good one. I slept on that movie for a long time, and I think I had seen it, but I just hadn't really, I don't know, I just was like, this isn't like my kind of movie. And then rewatching it more recently, this is so much fun.
It's hysterical.
We both love a good, like, campy, over the top, you know. I love that, which kind of leads me into the next one, my favorite campy, soapy TV show pick, which is Ugly Betty.
Yes.
So we both loved the show. This was one that we watched in high school, like every week, tuned in, watched it, talked about it the next day. In class, probably, maybe between class. I don't know. We were kind of like goody two-shoes, so we probably waited till between class. But this show has some amazing villains and like incredible character arcs. So I actually had trouble. I was like, I know that I want to pick one of them. I didn't know which one I wanted to pick because literally everyone is Betty's antagonist.
Yes.
Betty, the main character, for people who haven't seen this show. And they're all her antagonists, and then eventually most of them become her friends. Spoiler alert. For Ugly Betty.
Again, anyway, you've had many years.
It's such a good show. I would say if you haven't seen it and it's like, well, I maybe want to watch it and maybe don't want to know some of the things that happen. I don't know that I'm going to spoil a lot of it, but, you know, tune out, come back to us later after you've watched Ugly Betty in its entirety. We recommend it. It's a great show. It's complex. It's there's a lot of cultural commentary, which we're actually going to get into some of that in the next episode. We're going to talk a bit more about Ugly Betty. So yeah, go watch it. Just go binge it. It's only 4 seasons, sadly.
Yeah.
That was a big bummer.
But it's like the old long seasons. You're like 20 some episodes a season.
That is true. When it was so that's more like 8 seasons by Netflix standards. Great show. But anyway, there's the three main antagonists of the show. There's Wilhelmina, who is the like rival magazine creative director to like Daniel, who's like the other, I don't know, he like kind of starts as an antagonist, quickly forms a bond with Betty. Then there's Mark, who's Wilhelmina's assistant, who I love.
So good.
Such a good
Speaking
character.
Of dramatic villains.
Him and Wilhelmina, I feel like I almost like don't need to separate them.
Yeah.
I love them. And then Amanda, who's the receptionist, and she's just so mean. So mean at the beginning. It's not funny in the early episodes, and then it gets more funny, but still she plays like a typical kind of dumb blonde stereotype. And I think that's something that I really like about the show, is that it makes fun of like everybody.
Yeah, it's very
true. Everyone's the butt of the joke, so it feels, I don't know, less offensive somehow because they're just making fun of a lot of different stereotypes.
Yeah.
But I absolutely loved Wilhelmina. She's my pick.
Do you remember in 6th grade, we went to see Into the Woods on Broadway with like a class trip, and Vanessa Williams was in it.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I could not remember why I had seen that. I was like, why did I go to Broadway? That's so not me. But I remember loving it and thinking it was like a really good story, and she was incredible. We were so fortunate to actually have seen her on Broadway.
Yeah, I know. That was pretty cool. Sixth grade.
Totally unplanned. Just fell into our laps.
Years before Ugly Betty.
Love that. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Because I was like, I remember that, but I was like, I don't remember it well enough or the context to really even speak to it.
Sixth grade trip to New York City. Don't ask me what else we did that day.
Oh, yeah.
No idea.
I feel like they kind of just like let us loose, which seems so sketch.
It's a different time.
It was good times, right? Remember like when we were in Quebec too, they just were like, here, like, go, here's $10, go like have lunch somewhere, and we just got to like walk around Quebec, and we obviously went to McDonald's.
So I do remember that we did that.
I remember like, not speaking French and being in 7th grade.
What a choice.
Like, such a dork. So we were like, obviously we're gonna go to McDonald's, and we tried to order, and they're speaking French because it's what they speak there.
French
and
Canada.
We're just like, hamburger. That's one of the core. I have a lot of core memories from that trip to Quebec. That was a good one.
The dog sledding.
Yeah.
Okay, but tell us why you love Willem. Oh my gosh, we made syrup. We had made maple syrup butter.
That's so funny. You tried to get me back on track, and then you're like, but the butter, the maple syrup butter. That was incredible.
Good. Yeah.
Anyway, I love Wilhelmina. I think this alludes to what you were saying earlier about like this articulates one of the points of what I love in a villain, and it's a villain that embodies something that I do not, as a person, embody ever. Wilhelmina is so narcissistic, and every choice is for her own good. She puts herself first in every situation. She will sabotage anyone to get what she wants. And I am like this little do-gooding gremlin who's the little people pleaser.
Right, like there's something to admire about what she does.
Totally. It's so over the top. But also, I'm like, wouldn't that be nice to step into that energy every now and again and put me first?
Yes.
Would love that. Also, what I said I like about the show in general is that she does just indiscriminately insult everyone in every way, and that you should not.
Never stops, no matter where you are in her character arc.
No, but somehow it doesn't feel as offensive because she also just like everyone seems like they're on a level playing field with her. They're all beneath her.
Yes.
Everybody is beneath her. Everyone is less talented than she is, less intelligent than she is. I brought up the scene. I don't know if you'll remember this, but there was this scene where she is trying to rebuild her image, and she's going home from this day of doing these like performative acts of basically like a PR campaign to try to look better to get like investors for one of her schemes.
Yeah.
And so she's like going home after doing her good deeds, and she steals a cab from an old woman, slams her finger in the door, and yells, quote, "I'm Wilhelmina Slater and I don't get wet." And then we find out like 5 seconds later that the older woman is Betty White.
Yep.
And they have like a little beef. I feel like that's such a good like. Then they made that little like remix of the like the YouTubers is like a very meta show where like making a little like remix of the video footage of her slamming her finger in the door, being like, I'm Wilhelmina Slater and I don't get wet. I don't get wet. Like, I don't know why that really.
It'd be a TikTok now. Yeah.
Oh, be so good. She's great. I love her. I have more to say about Ugly Betty. It's just a very interesting show. I mean, it's called Ugly Betty. That's offensive.
Yeah.
That's not nice. It's just a show that's like not nice, but also like so tender and sweet in so many ways.
Absolutely. One of my favorites.
Love it. We love it. All right. Should we go on to our honorable mentions?
Yes. Okay. This is one that almost made it into my top ones. It felt a little too recent. But one of the movies that Ashley and I both love and have been talking about a weird amount recently is Cabin in the Woods.
Love it.
So many reasons. Maybe someday we'll do an episode on it. But the
grotesque but cozy.
Yes, quite. The people in the control room I don't know how else to describe them, but like Bradley Whitford and the other people wearing lab coats who are running everything behind the scenes.
Spoiler alert.
So yeah, spoiler alert. Again, you've had 14 years to watch this movie, but spoiler alert. They're just hysterical. I just love this concept that like that they are so cavalier about people's lives, but also so cavalier about this very important thing they're doing. There we go. I'm not spoiling that, but this very important thing that they're doing through this work. But it's just like a workplace comedy down there. And they're also like dramatic. And they're also, this is my category number 2. They are having fun. Like Bradley Whitford is both enjoying playing the part, and that character, I don't even remember his name, I'm sorry, is like really enjoying his day. And he is like really voting for the merman to show up and like all of these like ridiculous things. That was a very close runner-up for me.
That is so good. I didn't even think about them, but they make that movie for me. I don't think I'd like that movie if it were, because I think that is what's so great about that movie is that it has the traditional slasher horror film, and then it has this entire other film kind of going on simultaneously, and then they converge, and it's just makes for way more interesting plot than the average horror film. It's
totally
so
agree.
Good.
Yes.
It's so good, but also grotesque.
Yeah. It's a tough one. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna give you my first one. I regret doing this. I don't know why I wrote this down, and this is actually the one that I wrote the most about in my honorable mentions. It is Joanna the Goanna from a Walt Disney movie called The Rescuers Down Under.
Wow. Okay.
This is niche. This is very niche.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you do not know.
I've heard of the movie. I'm not even sure if I've seen it.
I don't know. This one might be too niche. I'm not going to get too in the weeds here. There's like maybe one person out there who's like, oh my God, that movie. I forgot about that. But basically, it's a movie about 2 mice who have to go save a young boy and an eagle from a poacher named McLeach. Also a great character. Poachers are the worst. Like, what a good villain category to be in. A poacher. Like, that's the perfect job for a villain. So
black and white.
Joanna is his pet lizard, who he just has all of these illegally captured rare animals. He's one of those guys, so he has them all in their cages, right? So he's trying to get this rare eagle, and he has this pet who's just like his lackey, basically. And she's so sassy and funny, and she's like definitely one of those where I'm like, is she does she have like a little Stockholm syndrome, right? Like, is she really like a good lizard? She just eventually just became attached to this bad man. I love her. She's sassy. She tries to steal his little crocodile eggs to snack on them. And there's this like iconic line from anyone who knows the movie where he says, "These are not Joanna eggs." And she just keeps like sneaking around and grabbing them. Anyway, I wanted to dress Cinnamon up as her for Halloween and go as McLeach myself, but it never happened. I have a thing about doing like super niche Halloween costumes, which actually is funny that I say that because I'm just gonna do my next. I think it will probably be my last. I have two others that I'll just like quickly pop off. But the next villain, I didn't dress up as him as Halloween, but I dressed up as the campers from Heavyweights.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
So Tony Perkis, right, which also is an easy stand-in for what's his name in Dodgeball.
I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, my brain doesn't work that way. But anyway, he plays the exact same character.
Yeah,
in Dodgeball.
It is.
This is just in 1995. I didn't know that it was co-written, but one of the writers was Judd Apatow of this movie.
Oh,
Did you know that?
No.
I mean, maybe you probably don't think about Heavyweights as much as I did. Also a complex film of like, it has a really like sweet message about accepting yourself and just like enjoying yourself, but it's also like about, you know, quote unquote fat camp. So,
right.
you know, and there's just like a lot of not nice things said, as you can imagine, in a film about that. But I love Tony Perkis. I think he plays that role to the T. I just keep wanting to call him Adam Sandler. It's not his name.
Ben Stiller. I just can't remember his character's name in Dodgeball.
Well, everyone's screaming it at us right now.
Didn't feel like would get an honorable mention, but was in consideration as a villain for me for my list. Whatever his name is in Dodgeball.
Another great film.
Yeah.
But to say that the characters are identical as Tony Perkis. So I don't even really need to explain further about why. I think he's a great villain. He just plays that part so well, and it's just that's a fun little Disney flick.
Yes.
Right, what's your another runner up from you?
Well, I'm gonna dive into Disney villains as kind of a larger thing, who all, let's be honest, fit into category number 3 for me. They are dramatic. We've got Cruella de Vil, literally killing puppies because she wants them for her coats, and so dramatic. We've got Ursula, who, again, not entirely sure about her motivation other than to be evil, but just like so confident and sure of herself, and is very accepted that she is modeled on the idea of a drag queen, which was a concept I wanted to bring up in this episode, which is that if we're talking about villains, there's so many Disney villains that are either kind of queer coded, like maybe inspired by members of the queer community, like Ursula, like I was just mentioning, or that have kind of been adopted by the queer community for, I think, some of the reasons that I've been talking about. Like Scar from The Lion King is another one. They're just these like different types of characters with very different personalities. I'm going to go ahead and say much more interesting personalities than like any main character in these. Much more nuanced, tons more fun. These are also villains that, like, even when you can't really see their motivations, look like they are having a blast. So I'm just gonna do like a full category as another honorable mention from me.
Yeah. Are you like secretly a Disney adult?
I am not. I am not. I do not rewatch the old cartoons, and I don't really see the new ones, but I have really good memories.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like nostalgic to think about them, and I love thinking about them through that lens.
Yes.
But no, I don't like to watch them. That may change.
Yeah.
As Baby Jed gets a little bit bigger, and we'll probably rewatch some of those oldies but goodies. Yeah, there's some good ones.
I would bet it will.
Yeah, there was one that I loved, and he made the honorable mention. I loved Toy Story. And Sid was like the antagonist on the first one.
Know a Sid.
I think he really scared me.
Yeah,
as a child, I found him like kind of disturbing. I think we did know a Sid. I mean, we probably knew several, but I'm thinking of Furbies now.
Oh my God.
And I love them. But also there was this boy who sat on the bus and he brought his Furby with him. He didn't talk to anyone. And you know how to feed your Furby, you had to touch its tongue, like press its tongue down? He would press the Furby's tongue down with a Phillips head screwdriver. Just sitting there alone, just feeding his Furby with a screwdriver. And I remember being
Sid
like,
energy.
That was the Sid vibe for sure. I don't remember who it was. We weren't friends. But,
for the best.
Did you have a Furby? You must have.
Oh, I had a Furby, yeah.
Yours was white, wasn't it? Was it white with black polka dots or something? Why do I remember this?
That sounds familiar. My biggest Furby memory was it like somehow just like fell down in the closet in the middle of the night once and turned on and started talking. And it was terrifying.
So I had this little gray Furby. I loved him. Did we name Furbies or were they all just called Furby? I don't remember that.
Me neither.
But sometimes, yeah, they seemed kind of possessed. And I
Yeah.
remember having to like put it underneath, like tuck it under my twin bed, all the way up against the wall, trying to just like, I'd put like pillows over it because every now and again, like in the middle of the night, you just hear like, yeah.
And like they didn't make normal noises. Like they
No.
were kind of terrifying.
Yeah,
I can't believe we let them into all of our homes.
Ugh, that was such a, like everybody had a Furby.
Yeah.
Everybody had a Furby.
Uh-huh.
So good.
A weird
Weird
time of
times.
life. Yeah.
The only other honorable mention I had was Ghostface from Scream. You see my cup,
Oh, love it.
which is an interesting one because Ghostface is different in every film. It's a costume, right?
Mhm.
But I just love the Scream films. We're gonna have to talk about Scream someday because even though I am now a big old softie ever since becoming a mom and I can't really tolerate new horror, I still love my comfort horror, and Scream is just the epitome of comfort horror for me. And Ghostface is definitely a like having a good time villain.
Yes.
The phone
Uh-huh.
calls. Just
whole
messing
thing's a
with people.
game.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fun. We're having fun.
Uh-huh. He is at least. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm having fun as the viewer.
Yes.
Ghostface is having fun. Nobody else is having fun.
Yes.
Dewey,
Yes.
maybe a little bit. He's always having
Mhm.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
Conversation for another day.
Yeah. Solid choices. I love them.
Yeah, that was good. So the internet may or may not agree with some of the ones we shared. We were maybe a little bit niche with some of our picks, but I did look to the internet to see like who else is out there, and it ranged because some of it was just like roundup posts where one author is just kind of like pulling from like whoever complimented a villain ever. And so they ranged from like pretty like yeah, okay, to like what? Really? So
Mhm.
Alan Rickman kind of just in all of his everything, right? He's just
Naturally.
the epitome of like an amazing villain. So
Yeah.
he played Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood. He was Snape, obviously, in Harry Potter, Hans Gruber in Die Hard, and I put, of course, Harry from Love Actually.
I love that addition.
Such
We
a
don't
villain.
talk about him as a villain often enough.
Not in that context, but he was a villain in that movie. And I will stand by
But
that.
you still felt for him in some
Yeah.
way, I guess.
Yeah, I haven't watched that movie enough times, I guess, to fully I feel like I watched it and I thought this is a great, like totally not toxic, fun movie. And
Maybe
then I watched
don't watch it again. Don't just
No.
leave. Oh, and then
No.
you did.
Then I watched it again and was like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is
It's
awful. It's a movie about cheating. Not about love.
About like cheating, and Keira Knightley was like 17 when they filmed it, and there's this,
Ooh.
like the stalkerish thing.
Yeah,
And I mean there's so many.
it's tough.
Yeah.
Tough. Sorry to anyone out there who loves that movie. Still a decent film.
You can still always enjoy the scene of Hugh Grant dancing.
Great.
Yeah.
Iconic. Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Another one that came up that I agreed with was Captain Barbossa from Pirates of the
Oh.
Caribbean.
Having fun.
So much fun. He's a great time. I really enjoyed him. The next one was definitely a WTF one for me. Joffrey from Game of
No.
Thrones.
No.
So this came into the like villains we love, lovable villains, right?
Yeah.
Versus villains we love to hate.
Sure. Love to hate
Yeah.
Joffrey. Yeah.
He's so many from Game of Thrones, just like horrible. No,
Yeah.
I pulled a quote from a Buzzfeed article that we'll link in our show notes that was called TV and movie villains that were so good that we almost started rooting for them, by Benjamin Dzialdowski. Sorry. So this was about Joffrey, and this was from username Brittany peed on a ladybug. Great name.
So all you
I
need to
don't-
know about this person.
Right. So, we're starting off in that way. And Brittany peed on a ladybug said, quote, "I honestly don't understand why people disliked him so much. I thought he was pretty much justified in his actions, especially when he became king and nobody showed him any respect." Brittany.
I feel like they're trolling. Like
Yes.
that is an
That's rage
insane
bait.
take on things.
That is rage bait for
Yeah.
sure. It's silly. It's silly. But anyway, it was in this article that said we were almost rooting for them. Nobody was rooting for him.
No.
I think that
Everybody
was
cheered when he died. Like that was
a
satisfying death.
Talk about grotesque.
Yeah.
Man
Yeah.
alive. Okay, so then there was Catherine from the Vampire Diaries. I never thought about loving her, but like, okay, fine. I don't have a
never
problem
watched
with
the
that.
Vampire Diaries.
Okay, so it was Elena's doppelganger. It was literally just played by Nina Dobrev. She just played herself as
it's very
the lovable
opera
version and herself, as the evil version. I never got through the entire series. I liked it for a while. Then we have Harry and Marv from Home Alone. Sure.
Oh, yeah. They're goofy.
Hannibal Lecter.
No.
I don't know. I think an interesting character for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess like Anthony Hopkins killed it.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. I actually love that movie. I think it's in a lot of ways, it's a very good movie. It also has some, challenging themes, but I think it's a very well done movie, and I think his character is incredible. And love Jodie Foster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love her. She's a great character too. Next one, Dr. Evil. You were into Austin Powers growing up. I was not. I was not, am not, will never be.
But see, like, I don't know. Like, that movie, those movies are all spoofs. Like, I don't know if Dr. Evil really counts as a villain.
Right.
Like, all of it was so ridiculous. But I enjoyed him. He was funny.
Then we got into the Disney villains. They're out there. They're beloved. The other one I have on here that's kind of funny is Christopher from Gilmore Girls.
That's fair.
I didn't see him as a villain. He was definitely not one. We both watched Gilmore Girls later in life. We were not there for it from the beginning. I wouldn't call us super fans. It's a very cozy show. We do like it and will discuss it to some extent. But there are other podcasts that go into far greater detail.
Yeah.
That are, way more interesting than any take we could ever have on Gilmore Girls. Yeah. But when it came across my desk that Christopher was a villain, I was like, yeah, he's kind of not great.
Yeah.
He's not great.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's not that interesting to me either. Kind of boring.
No, but in the scope of like suburban Connecticut and who could be a villain, I guess he's a villain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, one could argue that Rory is sometimes a villain in that show, but
people
like you said,
really get mad about Rory. Everyone. I mean, if a character doesn't have flaws, then it's the most boring show.
I would
in the
agree
world.
with that, and I should take that back. You know how I feel about this. And Carrie Bradshaw.
Yeah,
I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be human anyway.
Right. Here we are in all our humorness. Oh, we've been recording for too long. See? Flawed.
The headphones are too tight.
They are constricting the blood flow to my brain. Yeah. All right, so let's wrap this one up for today. I want to end the episode with a little blind ranking.
I'm so excited.
So I was just gonna say, you don't know who I'm gonna pick. It's blind ranking. Okay, that's like in the name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to list 5 villains from popular TV shows and movies. They're millennial-ish timeline, a little bit of a span. So you're going to have to rank them based on who you would most likely, like we're having an adult prom tomorrow. Who are you taking? Okay. 1 is your top pick and you're going to prom with them.
Love this.
I'm sorry. 5 is like, the least.
They'd be a terrible prom date.
Okay. Number 1 is Marv, the tall one from Home Alone.
Okay.
You have to pick a number 1 through 5.
Oh, before I know who the other ones are.
Yeah.
Oh, you made this very difficult. I see the game now.
Yes.
All right. Marv from Home Alone. And 5 is don't want to bring him to prom.
Right.
I know I'm coming out strong here, but I'm gonna give Marv the 5th spot.
Yeah.
That is like too many hijinks and like no payoff. And I don't see any enjoyment in having Marv as a prom date. I just
Fair.
have constant anxiety as to what he's up to.
I think that's you gave that a lot of thought. Okay. Number 2 is Darth Maul from Star Wars franchise.
Oh, speaking of dramatic villains.
I loved Darth Maul. I know everyone hates that movie. We're not Star Wars people either, for the record.
Are you a Star Wars person?
Do I know
totally
you
a Star
at
Wars
all?
person. Like, it's like the first thing I was dorky about, like, in life. Yeah.
I must have just ignored that. I erased that because I'm not anti. It's just not something that I watch and rewatch. But I went to see, which one is Darth Maul in?
One of the worst ones.
Yeah, people say it's horrible.
The Phantom Menace.
Okay, so I saw that at a drive-in movie, which just love a drive-in, and I don't know, I really was obsessed with Darth Maul for a minute. So anyway, are you in a prom with Darth Maul?
Before I get to that, I saw that at the Dead Mall, which we grew up in kind of a smaller town area, and there was like the mall that now has the big movie theater in it, but it must not have. But then there was like a strip mall across the street that like had Eastern Mountain Sports and this like old movie theater and nothing else, and that was the Dead Mall, and nobody cared. But now I've told that story because that feels like our canon. That's like an important part of our experience.
I think a lot of people's experience is like the corpse of some of like the video stores and some of the movie theaters, and
thriving area now.
I was gonna say
Dead
it
no
is
more.
Resurrected.
We also had the big mall, but that was like 40 minutes away.
Oh yeah, and in Holyoke, not great.
Yeah.
All right, so
Darth Maul. I'm gonna go slot number 3 here. I feel like it'd be fun to coordinate with his outfit, and I actually think he's got some serious moves. So I would I'm gonna go 3.
Yeah, fair enough. Next is Captain Barbossa.
Ooh. All right, I'm gonna go number 2 for Barbossa. I feel like he's a good time. He's quite an adventure. Interesting sense of style. Yeah, Barbossa's good too.
I feel like he smells bad.
He probably smells
like in
terribly.
My bones,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But that's fine.
It's fair.
You can't smell in movies, but I'm just like, I just know that man smells like really all kinds.
Yes.
All right. Number 4 is Pennywise from It.
Oh, number 4, because my number 5 is I don't do clowns. I can't do clowns. No,
this was by design and evil because I knew you were gonna leave. Number 1. Guess who you're going to prom with?
This feels like I'm playing MASH.
Ben Linus from Lost.
Oh, I'm fine with that. I'm fine. I love it. Like a evil little schemer behind the scenes. I feel like we could get into some hijinks, but like a good kind.
Evan might be in trouble with that pairing. I feel like you guys are kind of a good match.
Yeah.
I just knew like that by putting Pennywise as number 4, like he was not going to go to number 1.
Yes.
That was mean. I'm sorry.
So I'm pretty okay with how everything ended up.
We're going to prom with Ben Linus.
Love it.
All right, let's sign off for the day. We'll be back next week with another episode. We're going to be discussing Ugly Betty.
Yes, I can't wait. I love the continuity. I started with my villain choice from last week's episode, and you ended with your villain choice of next week's episode.
We sort of planned it, but almost. Or we just like have very niche specific interests.
Yes.
That we are now discussing in a podcast.
I'd be really impressed if we get past episode 5. I'm just kidding. We have a plan.
We have a plan. We have a plan, and if all else fails, we are just gonna go down the fellowship
one
from Lord of the Rings.
One. And then minor side character.
We're going to have to brush up. I feel like we need like the IMDb page pulled up of every movie we're discussing because we're like, who was that?
Do you think, this is my question for the internet, can you still find the movies somewhere that have like the director's commentary on them? Like I had the DVDs that had that, but I don't even have a DVD player anymore. We'll have to look into this.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do have several DVDs still.
Yeah. And you never
Lot of
watched the
DVDs.
extended version? Those were
I
on
did
the
never own them.
DVDs. Oh, I had the
Were
DVDs
they?
with the extended versions.
I don't think I had that. I feel like I would have known.
Ashley and Sarah signing off, still talking about Lord of the Rings.
All right. We gotta go. This has been Comfort Culture. I'm Ashley.
I'm Sarah.
And we'll talk to you next week. Bye.